Frequency and histograms. Our objective is to create stem and leaf plots, frequency tables, and histograms. Why learn this? Stem and leaf plots can be used to organize data like the number of students in a class. Let's start with some vocabulary. Stem and leaf plot arranges data by dividing each data value into two parts. The last digit of a value is called a leaf. So this would be your leaf. The digits other than the last digit of each value are called a stem. So if you had the number 23, the 3 would be the leaf because that's the last digit, and the 2 would be the stem since that's the rest of the number. A frequency is the number of times it occurs, whatever it happens to be. A frequency table shows the frequency of each interval. Histogram is a bar graph used to display the frequency of data divided into equal parts. So a histogram looks kind of like a bar graph, but when you label the bars are going to be labeled with the frequency that you've divided everything up into. Cumulative frequency shows frequency of all data values less than or equal to a given value. Let's start with some stem and leaf plots. The tens digits are the stems, and the ones digits are the leaves. So let's start with putting our stems down. Well, we're going to have a 0 since we've got one number that's a single digit. So we've got 0. We've got some values that are 1, some values that are in the 20th place, and in the 30s. So how many do we have that only have a single digit? This would be just the 9. So your leaf is the 9. All right, so now how many do we have in the tens? So we've got 14, 12, 18, another 18, and that's it. So now we put these in order. So your smallest is 2, our next smallest is 4, and then we have 2 8s for 18 and 18. Because notice how the key 2/3 means 23. Take a moment and pause the video and try to fill out the second half of this stem and leaf plot. When you return to the video, the answer will be revealed. And there you have it. Now let's step it up a notch. Now let's try doing a back-to-back stem and leaf plot. When you're dealing with a back-to-back stem and leaf plot, this center value here, or this center column, is going to be your stem, or stems, plural. To the left and to the right of that are going to be your leaves. Marty, his values for the leaves are going to be to the left, and Bill's are going to be to the right. So notice how the key has 14/1 meaning 141, and then 3/14 meaning 143. So let's take a moment and put down our stems. So our smallest one between all of them, it looks like it's going to be 12. So we've got 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So let's start with Marty. So we got to look for the ones that are 120 something. So we've got 121 here, 127, 123. So we put them in order. So we've got 1, and then we've got 3, and then 7. So now if we look for the ones that are in the 130s, we've got 137, 134, and that looks like it. So we've got a 4 and a 7. And then we keep going. So in our 140s, we've got a 3 and a 9. We've got nothing in the 150s, but we have 3 of them in the 160s, a 2, a 7, and an 8. So those are Marty's bowling scores, and now let's deal with Bill's. So in the 120s, we've got 129, 124, 128. So we've got a 4, an 8, and a 9. So much like the way we did in the previous example, you're going to do the same thing with Bill. The only weird one was Marty because it went to the left. So this is your back-to-back stem and leaf plot. So let's just keep going here. In the 130s, we have a 0, an 8, and a 9. In the 140s, we have a 141, a 145, and a 149. Nothing in the 150s, and we've got an even 160. And that's your back-to-back stem and leaf plot. It helps you see some different clumps, or in this case, see something in terms of the data of there's really nothing in the 150s. Alright, so now let's look at making a frequency table and histogram. Alright, so the final scores for each golfer in a tournament are given below. So we're going to use this data to make a frequency table with intervals. Then we're going to make a histogram of that data. So, step 1 is to look for your smallest and largest value, so your least and greatest values. So your smallest value is 68, and your greatest value is 82. Then we want to divide the data up into equal parts. So we have 68, 69, 70, and then 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76. See how they're all the same interval? That way you have your concrete base, and now we can look at the frequency. So how many numbers fell between 68 and 70? So you just go up here and you count. And in this case, you end up with 3. And then you do the same thing with 71 to 73. How many values landed between those two numbers? 4. And you keep going. So you have between 74 and 76. Count how many appeared there. And there's 6. And then we have 2 and 1. Once you have your frequency table, you might have put tallies back when you first learned this. However, numbers are just as sufficient. So your histogram for this, your bars are going to be labeled with your scores in terms of their clumps. So you still have a title, a left and or a X and Y axis labeled, and then you have numbers going up on the left-hand side. And then each of your bars are labeled with your clumps of data here. So your 68 to 70, so your frequency clumps, and then your bar goes up to 3, since that's how many times you had a number between 68 and 70. And you do that for each of them. And that's a frequency table and a histogram. So now let's look at making cumulative frequency tables. So the heights in inches of the players on a school basketball team are given below. So here we go. Your smallest value is 68 and your largest value is 79. So now that we have your smallest and your largest, what we're going to do is we're going to split all the data up so that way things are all evenly separated. So then we're going to tally our frequency. So the frequency from 68 to 70, that seems to appear 6 times. And then how many times does the numbers between 71 and 73 appear? Well, that's going to be 8. And then 74 to 76 is going to be 5. And then from 77 to 79, all we've got is that 79, so that's just 1. Cumulative frequency goes one step further. So for cumulative frequency, well, how many are at this frequency or lower? Well, it's just 6. So now when you go to the next one, it's going to be what you had here plus the 8. So now you're at 14. So as you keep going, it's cumulative, so it keeps increasing. So you take your 14, add your 5, and now altogether, so from here below, you have 19, and then 20. And there's cumulative frequency. This also ends our video on frequency and histograms.